Hi friends, I'm Karishma Chagani Hamilton, and you are here in Montego Bay, Jamaica with us at the Tech Beach Retreat 2022. I'm seated here today with Dr. Sarah Haynes from Coursera. Dr. Sarah Haynes, how are you?
I'm wonderful.
How does it feel to be in Jamaica?
It's my first time here, and it's been fantastic and an incredible experience at Tech Beach.
So there's so much that I want to know from you, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit because you had a workshop today, and I have heard the most incredible things about your workshop. So I want to jump into what your workshop was about and what the purpose of it was. But before we go there, can you tell us a little bit about your company?
Sure. My goal with Coursera is to democratize access to executive coaching for all, to be able to have the methodology I developed in my classroom and perfected it for the boardroom in Silicon Valley, and the top executives have access to me and my methodology, but I want to scale that so everyone can have access to it. And it's a values-based approach that sets your annual goals based on your values, data, and science, and it helps with company culture to set your KPIs, your personal and your professional KPIs, so you can integrate your life rather than trying to have work-life balance, which I talked about today in the workshop, is a myth that millennials are really wanting, which really appreciate. But I've studied the most successful people, and they're able to integrate their personal and professional life rather than separating it. And if you integrate it based on your values, that you have the same values at work as you do at home, then you're much more aligned and have less stress and less conflict and less burnout. So you're more fulfilled and better integrated in everything you do.
You know, this is fascinating, and I appreciate so much that you've taken the time to be here, because I think it's a very important topic, and I find in settings like this we don't discuss that level of balance at all. It's that mentality of the hustle culture, leveling up, pushing forward, breaking the boundaries, but I think a part of breaking the boundaries and being disruptive is self-care and this level of care. So how did you realize this need?
Well, I think ultimately I've burned out myself as a high achiever, wanting to do more, and understanding as an entrepreneur you always have to do more with less and be very disciplined with how you spend money, and also to build a company culture where people are motivated to work harder. Right? For a startup, our pay is not as much when you're first starting, and so people are willing to work much harder when they're aligned with the values and the impact and the socially driven mission of a company. So it's really important, working in Silicon Valley, I've seen some of the top minds, the most brilliant minds, scale companies like Uber, Airbnb, Slack. These are companies we invested in. But I recognize that the founders and entrepreneurs and leaders don't have a place where they can actually talk about the stresses that they're feeling. They have to show a certain persona and mask to their team, to the investors, to their family members, that everything's fine. And as we know, there's ups and downs in life, so Coursera is really focused on making sure that we have the 5 pillars of life and wellness that I've studied also, and we set your goals based on your professional goals and finance and career goals, your leadership and personal evolution, because you want to continue to evolve, but do it in a way that is measured, that is disciplined, but also focuses on the 3rd pillar, which is health and wellness, which is the first thing that goes when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a mom, all the different hats that you wear when you're a partner. It really changes as you go through your life, different priorities. So you want to focus on your health and wellness, because that's most critical. When we've learned that in the pandemic, that when your health is impacted, or your child's health is impacted, or your loved one's health is impacted, you're not going to be able to focus at work. You're not bringing your whole full self. And so that's the 3rd pillar. The 4th pillar is intimate and family relationships. And when those relationships are stressed and are not optimal, again, you're not going to be able to focus at work. And so we want to make sure we have goals around spending time with your family and loved ones, and put money into the bank so that you can extract from it when things are stressful at work and you have to work later and so forth, that people feel like they're connected with you no matter where you are in the world. The last one, which is really important to take us back to the collectivist culture, is the community and network. We cannot do anything big alone, and we know that, again, with the pandemic, has really brought us to understand how important our community is to be able to achieve our goals in a way that shares knowledge. So Coursera is really based on focusing on bringing the best-in-class experts, so you can ask questions in a multidisciplinary team of questions that you may have asynchronously, so that you can actually be able to get the best knowledge in real time that is relevant to today. Not the textbook. I was a tenured professor. By the time textbooks are published, it's already outdated. I was a researcher at Georgetown School of Medicine. The data is outdated, by the time it's published. So technology is really a time where things are moving fast, but also very stressful because things are moving fast. So you have to take care of yourself and your sleep and nutrition, your relationships, your financial goals. And you're making good, disciplined decisions so you can get through the economic upturn and downturns, because we have to do more with less.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that in human psychology and motivation is doing things based on your values. Because at the end of the day, you put your head down on the pillow, you're able to sleep knowing that the lens in which you're making a decision as a leader, as a partner, we make over 40,000 decisions every day.
Wow.
You open up your eyes, you think, where am I going today? What am I doing today? What's the weather like?
What am I having for breakfast?
Right. And you just open up your eyes. Imagine throughout the day, all these decisions you're making. And if your values are not in the front of your lens, just in the back of your mind somewhere, then you're going to make decisions that are not aligned and not true integrity with which you want to move and have actions. Exactly.
Right.
So we know that stress exists between your values and your behaviors, and that delta in between is actually where you have conflict, where you have stress, when you have burnout. So the methodology I developed is based on a behavioral science methodology called the token economy that my supervisor in my dissertation was Nathan Azrin. It was trained at Harvard and by B.F. Skinner at Harvard, and it's about rewarding yourself. So pausing and rewarding yourself when you get to that milestone that you wanted and you prayed about to get to it. You're engaged, all of a sudden everyone's like, oh my God, that's great, congratulations, let me see the ring. Oh, how many carats? When's the wedding? When are you gonna have children? All the stress to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, instead of just
taking a moment to just, yes, of course, yeah.
So I know you're newly married, so those are
yes.
just, and then professionally you go through all these different milestones and you achieve it, you high five and you move on.
Right.
It's really important to stop and celebrate and dance with the people that brought you to the party and thank the people that wrote you a letter of recommendation, build those relationships back to community. And I think that's where we get our source of support and strength from to go back to that.
I hope then you're going to give the co-founders of Tech Beach Retreat, Kirk and Kyle, an A++, because I do think that they take the time to celebrate with everyone in the space.
Yes.
So, okay, getting back to business now, the workshop that you had today, how do you get this much information into such a short window of time in such a manner to create an impact?
Yeah, I think one thing that I realize is this is very needed.
Yes.
Every time I've announced my workshop, within one day it gets filled because people need this. They're hungry for it.
Yes.
And if you can build a trusting space where people know that they can be their authentic self, they're much more likely to share their values. They're much more likely to share their obstacles and the struggles and the challenges you have. And so this is the idea with the workshop, was to really be able to share that knowledge in a very distilled way. I've been trained in the medical school model where you have ground rounds and very quickly you have to say it's a 25-year-old patient with this and and rattle down all the essence of the information, be efficient with your communication. And so as a professor, you have 45 minutes to teach a module or your curriculum, so you have to be very engaging as well, because people can get very disengaged after 20 minutes. You lose their interest. So we had an hour and 15 minutes in this setting, and usually it takes an hour and a half. So you can expand. I can, because of I was a tenured professor, so I know how to expand and retract depending on the time I'm given to be able to get to the essence of what people want to remember and what are the key takeaways, because we go from one meeting to the next and we forget what we've learned and what we want to action on. What are the things that are really key components that we want to embrace? You go to workshops, you go to conferences, but if you don't have the key takeaways of what you want to implement in your life, you go back to the environment in which you came from and you just follow the same defaults. And so the idea is to really be intentional about behavioral change and what are the things you want to work on and communicate that. There's power in telling people what you want, your intentions are. It keeps you accountable and being a human of your word.
Yeah. Wow, you are so inspirational and motivational. I stepped into the end of your workshop and not a single phone was out. And that's a huge deal because we're at a tech conference, but everyone had either a pen in their hand or they were fully zoned in on you. And I thought, wow, she really did command this space and command this room. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity to share my knowledge and
Yes,
experiences.
it's appreciated. I actually now want to ask you, if you could inspire a young mind coming up behind you, what 3 golden nuggets would you give that mind?
I think the first one, which I mentioned is really important, is make sure your relationships are long-term, that you're not just having transactional relationships and seeing what people can do for you, but add value before you ask for something from anyone, from investors, from the community. I volunteer my time. That's been my kind of key takeaways. Give something away of your time and knowledge for free, and then it'll attract people to know, wow, this is something that's really interesting and I want to help this person elevate their goals. How can I help her or him to be able to do the thing because they gave something of themselves as a gift? For free, without any monetary exchange, right? And so I think that's the first principle. The second one is dance with the people that brought you to the party. Don't just move up the ladder and forget the people that helped you, support you at the foundation. We stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, and which brings to the third one, is we talked about humility and people saying that's part of their values. And we talked about all different ways. You can say respect, for example, is your value, but cross-cultural psychologists, I've trained in different cultures, and respect in one culture is very different than another culture. So you need to be able to understand taking off your shoes in one culture is respect, and another culture be like, whoa, 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 how long are you staying? Like, you know, don't take off your shoes. So I say those examples, and it's important also to have humor and be lighthearted and learn how to adapt and be nimble to the stresses that come with entrepreneurship. But if you don't have a community, you wouldn't be able to do what you've done here. There's people that believe in the founders and know that, you know, their heart's in the right place to try to do the things that you want to do, and to build a community where people are exchanging knowledge and helping one another out and networking, not in a way that is just exchanging credit cards and QR codes, but meaningful relationships where you can say, how can I help you? And find win-wins. And that's, I think, ultimately when we look at deals and we look at it as an investment role, people think, I want to get the best deal, but you have to think like you want to find a win-win, so people feel like everybody walks away from the table feeling good about what it was, not one person going, oh God, you know, that wasn't the
mentality of how can I provide the best value as opposed to how can I create the biggest win. The win comes from value. Exactly.
And the last thing is about negotiation, right? And it's such an important trait to have. To find that negotiate that win-win is important. People say marriage is about compromise or relationships about compromise. I say no, because if you compromise, you're actually not living by your values. I say that it's important that you don't have resentment also. When you compromise, you're not being fully true and authentic to your goals. So it's about negotiating and communicating in any relationship with your supervisors, with your partners, with your family, with everyone, right? You negotiate to say, these are the things that communicate, these are the things, the needs I have right now, right? Maybe in the future it might be different, but right now this is my goal, this is my values, and are we able to find a way to make this work and find a win-win, right? And maybe right now I'll take the lead on whatever it is, our career, whatever the win is that you're looking for, and then in exchange, like when you're ready to do something, you have credit in the bank and you have credibility in the bank to be able to then take your turn and lead in what your needs are. So it's more of a negotiation than it is compromising your values.
Thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me today and chat to those who couldn't make it at home, and to give us some great bite-sized nuggets. So I want to thank you very much for being here and for adding your essence and your value into the space of Tech Beach Retreat here in Montego Bay, Jamaica.
Thank you.
This is Dr. Sarah Haynes. Dr. Sarah Haynes, if they want to be able to reach you, what's your website? How do people find you?
So it's coachera.com. It's a new era in coaching. So it's coach and then era.com. And you can sign up for a 30-minute complimentary consult, so I can talk to you in discovery call and see if it's a good fit for you and your company and your team. So it's really an enterprise play, but right now in my beta, I have a MVP, so I'm taking on individuals as well.
You heard this here at Tech Beach Retreat 2022 with Dr. Sarah Haynes from coachera.com.